Welcome back. So what do we make of the week that just was? Did you see the video from the Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin boasting about how his new high-tech nuclear missiles can evade our defenses and raid down on, hey, that's us? That immediately resulted in a presidential tweet at 5:42 this morning about Alec, misspelled Baldwin's dying misspelled career. Okay, let me get through this. Stop laughing. The president is now at Mar-a-Lago for a well-deserved breather after a week where one of his closest aides, Hope Hicks, quit after testifying to the House Intelligence Committee that she sometimes tells little white lies for the president. And afterward, his son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner's security clearance, which was downgraded amid continued questions about his business dealings and foreign contacts, and all as we wait for answers from the president and from Congress and the NRA about what, if anything, they'll do on safety measures after the Parkland massacre. And joining us for more is Cheryl Wilson, the chair of the Manatee Democratic Party, Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com, and William March, a political correspondent for the Tampa Bay Times. So, Rod, I'm going to start with you. I tell you, a lot of experts say the video that was produced by Putin, don't take it seriously, even though it looks like the missiles are headed directly for us. But nothing from the president. In fact, let's put up the president's tweet on the Russian missiles coming our way. We know it was, the president must have tweeted about it. Oh, that's right. He didn't say anything about it.
Boom, boom.
But he did find time to smack around Alec Baldwin this morning. I don't get it.
But you cannot possibly be surprised by it. This has been the case since he was running for the campaign. This is clearly who President Trump is. I don't know what to do with the Putin thing, except to say this specifically on this, and to remind us all that Putin and Russia under Putin is actually an enemy of all Americans. Republicans, Democrats, wild-eyed liberals, and wingnut conservatives, and everybody in between. He is our joint and common enemy. And I think that that should be remembered right here. And it also reminds us, based on what came after the election and how we're finding out now that those Russian bots were promoting pro-Trump demonstrations and anti-Trump demonstrations at the same time to sow discord in the country.
I've never seen that come out of the president's mouth.
Which is what?
That Russia is the enemy of the United States.
Oh, he said awfully close to that. I mean, I think I could find for you very much to that effect. That Russia, he wants to work with them, just like Obama did, just like Clinton did, but they're not our friend.
Cheryl, I wonder what your take, again, I mean, we don't think that Russia is going to be launching nuclear missiles headed for MacDill Air Force Base anytime soon, but that was jarring.
It was, and I have comforted myself by saying Putin is running for president as well. So he's doing some campaigning in Russia and flexing his muscle a bit, but it just kind of completes the triumvirate. You have three madmen in very powerful positions, and that is something, and I appreciate Rod's comments, but that's something we all need to pay attention to.
Wendy, is it, do you think, at least in our area, the entire Tampa Bay region, from Tampa down to Sarasota and parts south, that we have all basically taken it for granted now that the president would rather spend the early morning hours blasting people like Alec Baldwin than other targets, potentially like Vladimir Putin, when he does such a provocative thing like that?
Well, it's it's what appeals to Trump emotionally. It's what affects him. It's what he notices, and what he notices is people who like him or people who don't like him, and that's what matters to him. As far as Putin is concerned, I would pick up on something Cheryl said. Putin is campaigning. One thing that didn't get a lot of notice was the other parts of Putin's speech, in which he promised more health care spending, bigger pensions. He's trying to tell his citizens that their nation is going to be indomitable militarily and also incredibly affluent, and he's doing very much what Lyndon Johnson once did, guns and butter. We're going to be dominant in every way.
Right. But in terms of the president's tweet about Alec Baldwin this morning, not to spend too much time on it, but we could all laugh about it if not for the very serious subject in terms of gun safety and what the president said earlier this week, and I think we have that soundbite queued up. And we're wondering, Rod, what you your take of this but take a look first.
I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms. They saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
And that was Wednesday.
Are you good with that?
I am not good with that. That's totally unconstitutional. But the context for that is that this is what I've said a lot during the campaign and why I was surprised for much of 2017. I don't think Donald Trump is an ideological conservative at all. I think he has some instincts that are American. Some of those instincts fall in conservative categories. Some of those instincts fall in liberal categories. I think on gun control, he's left of center of America, and you saw that come out right there. The good news for people like me that are big Second Amendment defenders is that something like that would not get through Congress, and it's already being walked back. But he clearly does not know the intricacies of the issue. He acts instinctively on a lot of these things.
Cheryl, what was your take of that whole scene in the cabinet room with the Republicans and Democrats there and what the president said? As a Democrat, were you hopeful that maybe a breakthrough would be made?
I realized who was talking. No. To me, it was a deja vu. It was just like the DACA discussion that had happened a couple of weeks before. So I fully expected to see an about face or a switch in position. And that's why I said that was Wednesday, today's Friday. He's already backing away from it. What I, again, keep reminding myself is we are so quick now to say, oh, this is Trump. This is what Trump does. We need to stay angry about that, and as Democrats we need to stay frustrated about that. We need to continue to call him out for that.
Okay.
We have to stay excited about it.
We are just getting warmed up, and we'll have much more on the week in Washington right after we check the first alert weather. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking about the week in Washington, and joining us for more is Cheryl Wilson, the chair of the Manatee Democratic Party, Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com, and William March, the political correspondent for the Tampa Bay Times. We're going to continue on the issue in terms of gun safety because there was a headline in the New York Times, gun control push collides with political reality. So from Governor Rick Scott to President Trump, they both talked about doing something in many of the areas that we're all concerned about, whether it is guns themselves or the age that you could buy them, mental health, law enforcement, and so forth. 2 weeks left in the Florida legislative session. They are under pressure, and I can't tell what's happening in Washington right now, Wendy.
Well, what's happening in Washington? First, we saw earlier in the program about Donald Trump pulling back on some of his proposals for gun control after a meeting with the NRA. Marco Rubio has also pulled back on restrictions on large magazines for semi-automatic weapons and age restrictions after espousing those positions on the CNN town hall. And exactly the same thing is happening at the state level. You have two competing pieces of legislation in the Florida House and Senate. The House is in danger of not being able to pass a bill at all because people on the far left and people on the far right are both opposed to it. The Senate, meanwhile, is delaying its bill in order to try to get to some sort of piece of legislation that could go through both houses. So yeah, political reality is setting in. You had first this rush of emotional reaction after the school shooting, and now political reality is setting in.
So, Rod, do you think that we have a very good chance, when all is said and done, that we are going to end right now exactly where we begin, another mass casualty event, and yet we don't do anything about anything?
Well, I hope not, because if we don't do anything about anything, that includes mental health and all the other issues. I think the problem is it really was late in the process to try and start a gun legislation bill that was going to be actually large and comprehensive and accomplish something that people would want done, because that really does require a lot more than emotional response. Part of my concerns, however, is that there's been so much energy and focus, so much political pressure brought to bear on legislators, and that they have maybe taken their eyes off some of the other really big issues. And one of those is possibly the opioid crisis, which I suspect has killed a whole lot more people since Parkland than Parkland did in Florida, possibly even teens. That is something that is a rolling crisis. You've done several shows on that. And I hate to see the response to Parkland derail anything with that, because that is something that we have got to get a hold of, and that requires a complex response, including a lot of money.
Be that as it may, Cheryl,
Yes.
let me ask you the question this way. If not much of anything is done on gun safety, either at the state or federal level, are the Democrats going to use this in the upcoming midterms to campaign against the Republicans?
You betcha. And I don't see that emotional response is a great deal different than thoughts and prayers. It isn't as though we have not had ample time previously with the multiple tragedies that have happened earlier to come up with a logical, thoughtful response to it. There is no reason that it has to be an emotional response. We had commented among ourselves and in our party operations just days after Parkland that this one seems a bit different. The response to this seems a bit different. I will be, and I believe the Democratic Party will be, highly disappointed if it goes back to business as usual 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now, and then we have another mass shooting.
A lot of other things taking place in Washington this week, and we're going to bunch them together a little bit because it all kind of orbits around the White House. Hope Hicks resigning. She was the communications director for the president. We knew her during the presidential campaign, although many people may not really be concerned about this young woman leaving the White House. But you put that together with news that more than 30 Trump aides have had their top secret clearances downgraded, and the National Security Advisor, General H.R. McMaster, looks like he is going to be leaving. Rod, you look at all these things, and in every administration, Democrat or Republican, people come and go. But do you get concerned that there's just a whole lot of things going on in the White House right now, which is preventing the White House from keeping its eye on whatever ball they're trying to hit?
I think so. To a degree, I do, yeah, because I think that the Trump administration came in without some of the political experience that others, without the Washington experience of others, and so there was really a pretty steep learning curve, and you saw that, you see that with some of the turnover. The Hope Hicks leaving, she's not exactly a household name, but she is probably the most loyal Trump supporter in his inner circle. She's the last one of the inner circle. She was actually, I think, even though only 29, she was actually a good balancing thing for him. And what struck me about it that I find interesting about her is that obviously as communications director, she knows how to spin things. She understands how spin works. She did not spin her leaving. She just announced it and then walked out the next day with no spin, no leaks. Clearly what has happened a lot is you leak what was really going on and why exactly. And she didn't leak any of that, and she got a bruising over it. And that goes to, I think, because she is that loyal to the president.
There's also been some speculation, Wendy, that her departure is not unrelated to the special counsel's investigation. But let me ask you this question. Looking at folks around the Tampa Bay area that you talk to, does any of this going on in the White House, or does it resonate with people, or do they just write it off to inside baseball?
Well, I have a sort of an intuitive feeling, and I can't cite polling to prove this, that the American public, by and large, is willing to accept a lot of stuff that seems bad, ridiculous, outlandish to us political insiders, as long as they think they're willing to accept corruption, a certain amount of corruption. They're willing to accept a certain amount of chaos, a certain amount of dysfunction, as long as they think the guy in charge is moving in a direction they want to go, is doing something they want done. They have a fairly low opinion of government overall, so it doesn't surprise them if there's dysfunction, if there's chaos, if there's even a certain amount of corruption. But they want to see something get done in return for it. And I have a feeling that when you see stories like Hope Hicks, and you see the stories that came out this week about Jared Kushner and other members of the Trump family using the presidency for their own material advantage, I have a feeling that that's the way people react.
You know, Cheryl, I would imagine Democrats like yourself are pulling your hair out every single day, but you know, I talk to a lot of folks who live around here and say, you know what? There's more money in my pocket today than there was a couple months ago.
I was ready to light my hair on fire, which is what I say to my team real often. Hope Hicks, Jared Kushner, it all falls together. It's not that difficult to know that lying is not permissible. It's not that difficult to know that using your position in the government to your own financial or whatever advantage is not the reason that you're there. It's really not as difficult and as nuanced as they seem to make it. And I would be very stricken if Wendy's analysis is correct, that as long as everything's going your own way, that we're willing to take this and accept corruption in our government. That's where we're pulling our hair out.
I want to bring up one more issue, and that is the president's announcement in terms of tariffs on imported steel and aluminum. The president was actually quoted as saying, "Trade wars are good and easy to win." Rod?
Yeah, he's wrong. So I'm going to go two here, where I think the president is just dead wrong. But again, this goes back to him not actually being a conservative in a lot of ways. So free trade is just one of the hallmarks of conservatism, and he thinks that unfair trade is what's hurt the steel industry. The steel industry's actually been doing pretty well, and I think there's a general lack of understanding of how trade works and how there's rolling repercussions from tariffs, which have typically been the venue of the left and the Democratic Party because of unions. Notice, unions came out very much in favor of this. This is just Trump acting instinctively again, kind of a pro-American instinct, but it is bad because what happens is you start trade wars with other countries, and actually everybody gets hurt.
Can I just caution everybody who's watching tonight who loves to beat us up in terms of the Trump bashing here, that Rod has pretty good credentials as a conservative on the Suncoast. Wendy, you talk about trade wars and trade issues. A lot of people just fall asleep, but so why should they care?
Well, they should care because a huge recession could result. Your car could cost more, your can of Coke could cost more, your washing machine could cost more, because all those things are made out of steel. Your grain sales to Canada from your farm might go in the toilet. That's what trade wars lead to.
Okay.
And can I say, is it simplistic of me to say that I don't like to see a decision such as this made in a fit of temper? And that's some of the reporting that we're hearing as well.
Well, that sounds like an emotional response, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have to take a quick break.
Is that simple?
Well, we have to take a quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in a moment. And our guests join us right now for final thoughts. And Cheryl, I'm going to put it to you this way. You know, we recently had the House 72 election where a fair amount of Republican women crossed over and voted for Democrat Margaret Good. Are you hoping to find these issues that will also resonate with Republican women, that will separate the Republican candidates running from what we're hearing in terms of the issues?
I think we are finding those issues. We're hearing those issues. We don't have to go look a lot for them. We're hearing from women all the time who are saying, why did I vote this way? Why did I think this way? There are women's issues. There are education issues. There's the opioid crisis that Rod mentioned earlier. There are environmental issues. There are job issues. And all of these resonate with women. And also just the Me Too movement and the belief for so long that women couldn't perform some of these functions. And now there are more women running for office. There are women who are leaving good careers to run for office because they're committed and dedicated to doing it. So yeah, we're really excited about women candidates and the women's vote.
Hey Rod, let me ask you a swampy question. The stories this week about the $500 million, I believe, in loans to Jared Kushner's family, coincidentally by people who met with him in the White House, and you put that on top of Ben Carson buying a $30,000 dining room set for his office at HUD. And a lot of people are saying, is this the swamp that people, thought the Trumps were going to drain?
Right. It's probably not. The Jared situation is the perfect example of why, if you're going to be in that sort of office or position, you need to separate yourself from your business. You can't keep running a business while being in the White House, an advisor like that.
But the president really didn't separate himself
from his
business.
the president did. I mean, the president did separate himself from that to a lot of people's satisfaction. I'd also like to say, in context on the Jared situation and with the security clearance issue, that what got almost no coverage, because apparently it wasn't known, was that Ben Rhodes, the national security advisor for the Obama administration, actually the FBI denied him security clearance at all. And it is unclear to this day how he ended up with security clearance to be in the White House. The Washington Free Beacon of all did that. But the context being that was not a big deal. This one is a big deal. Different administrations, different coverage.
Fair point. You're a reporter. Respond to that.
Sorry.
I don't know anything about the Ben Rhodes situation. I do know that Jared Kushner's portfolio in this administration has been huge. Everything from foreign policy to economics, But I don't know any of the details about Rhodes' security clearance.
Okay.
I don't either.
All right, we have to leave it there. FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And for the latest on local breaking news, don't forget to download the updated version of our app. If your current app doesn't work, it's expired, just go to the App Store and re-download it by searching for WWSB or My Suncoast. We want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. Cheryl Wilson is the chair of the Manatee Democratic Party. Rod Thompson is with the RevolutionaryAct.com, and William March is the political correspondent for the Tampa Bay Times.